Adv Salie.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Welcome to the new board, and I'm sure that this board understands the same way that I spoke to the other board, that unfortunately whatever has happened previously will also be part of your responsibility. Now, I have to take us back to August 2024. The portfolio met with Boxing South Africa. Further to our meeting last year, there was a request for a forensic investigation into Boxing South Africa due to serious concerns surrounding irregular expenditure by Boxing South Africa, concerns surrounding the travel, accommodation, excessive litigation, and many other concerns, which you have witnessed in your investigations. So serious concerns was raised, and there was undertakings that were made by the previous board as well as the minister that a forensic investigation would be conducted. We note that the previous board was dissolved and a new board has been appointed in December 2024, and we welcome the new board. February, the Honourable Minister noted that the new board would be tasked with the investigation. I note an investigation, and well done on a presentation that was really not too bad. However, this is not what we asked for. We asked for a forensic investigation because of the serious concerns over the years that has led us to the point where Boxing South Africa is basically in the ICU. There's a bit of a heartbeat. I think the heartbeat is a possibility of improvement with our current board. However, that being said, it was requested 8 months ago. And it just feels that the deadlines and the timelines that was provided was totally disregarded. What accountability and urgency has actually been given into this investigation? And then with all due respect to this board, I wish to place it on record that this investigation and the forensic report was requested for the minister to ensure. What authority does this board have to actually investigate another board? That is something that is bothering me. And how is this board going to hold accountable the entities of the other boards? And note, I note the word boards, not just the previous, but prior boards as well. So the new board, please advise what systems have been put in place to recover debt owing from promoters that is still active. As the previous board had reported a plan and had apparently collected approximately 150,000 of debt during the period of their term. And I'm very concerned, and I hope that this board does not think that they can just write off the debt. Because accountability and transparency is a problem, not just in this portfolio and department, but in many a department, that is a lack of holding timeframes, deadlines, accountability and transparency. And there's been on several levels of government, there's this habit of writing off debt and thinking that we can just move on. This is public funds that we need to make sure that we are accountable for. Then, I note you have indicated with regard to the vacancies, with regard to the interviews conducted, etc., and those processes. I just want to know, is there any other vacancies that we need to be concerned about, or upcoming potential vacancies? And then further, Boxing South Africa, I note that there is 9 provinces. We all know there's 9 provinces. There's 5 provincial managers. So please advise, is each manager being paid the same amount? Or also, because I'm noticing this appears to be some managers covering for other sectors of the province. So it feels like a bit of double dipping happening. Is those people being paid more for the work that they are doing, or is it just across the board the same amount? Then there has been serious concerns raised on underpayments of boxes. What investigation has been done and decisions has been made on the pittance being paid to boxers? Has there any resolutions been taken? How are we going to sort this problem out? And then also the ring announcers, how much are they getting paid? And how many ring announcers do you have that has got over 10 years of experience? Because I'm also concerned because there's quite a few ring announcers, but the amount that they are being paid is ridiculously low. Then also, what is your programs and indicators and targets that you have planned as well? Thank you.
PSA.
Okay, thank you so much, Honourable Member, for those questions. So I think I just want to start on the debt issue, and then the CEO will cover the other issues. In relation to the debt issue, I completely agree with you, Honourable Member, that we will not be writing off the debt from the promoters. What we are currently doing now, however, is an exercise of cleaning up the books, because as we know in law, after a certain amount of time, certain debt prescribes and you can't pursue that debt. And so what we're doing is we're cleaning up the books so that we are left with debt that we can recover, and then we are going on vigorously to recover that debt. And then in relation to the vacancies, at this stage, the only other vacancy that is outstanding based on our organogram is the company secretary. We do have somebody that is acting in that role, but it will be the next role that we will be filling. And then I also just wanted to indicate in relation to the litigation that has been ongoing and that has drained the coffers of the organization. We have engaged with the Promoters Association, and we have mutually agreed that all litigation will cease from now on, and we will find ways to engage with each other without having to go to courts. So all parties have agreed to withdraw the court cases that are currently pending in court so that we curb any further expenditure from a legal point of view. I think that's it. I don't know if you want to cover the others.
No, vacancies in the provincial managers. Yes. I think there are 5 for the 9 provinces, and they are working in other provinces as well.
All right. No, thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to request the Chief Operations Officer to deal with the questions of the 3 areas that you've mentioned, one being the provincial managers, and then the next one, the ring officials, and then the last one being the progress that we are doing with regard to addressing the minimum payment for boxers. So.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Starting with the issue, advocate of the provincial managers, that was a strategic decision taken in terms of making sure that there is a reduction in terms of COE. Looking at the activity in those particular provinces, you know, and it's a matter that was an interim measure to make sure that we don't have a human resource, you know, that is idling, you know, without it being active. Because most of the work that comes from the provincial managers is coming through tournaments. And then if you can look at our report, there are provinces where there is a, you know, a low level of tournament activity. So through that, the amalgamation of some of the provinces was to make sure that there is a reduction of costs, looking at our COE and to make sure that, you know, there is, not much of, spending whilst people are not, active. Subsequent to that, advocate, is to also make sure that those provincial managers, they make sure that there is activity there. For instance, now in the Northern Cape, a provincial manager of the Western Cape is responsible for Northern Cape. The information that came out of the engagements that he has done, and the plans that are there in terms of making sure that there is activity in the Northern Cape, several engagements with the amateur structure that is Sanabo to make sure that we increase our base in the Northern Cape. If you look on the Gauteng one that is responsible for Northwest, there is activity there as well. So it's a strategy that is an interim at the moment, up to until we make sure that we are stable when it comes to our finances. So the second question was around the issue of ring officials, which again, is an agreement that we have to saying that the amount that is being paid to our ring officials is not an adequate amount, of which that have been thoroughly deliberated during the convention to make sure that at least, there is an increase that is being made. And all those discussions around the purse monies, the issues of payment of all the licensee category. These are the engagements that we will have now with the licensees. We are now in a licensing category. Currently now, we are in that particular process to make sure that all the resolutions will be communicated for the new financial year, which have already started now. We are 22 days towards the new financial year. So by the first week of May, those engagements, particularly to promoters when it talks to the sanctioning issues and the past monies, the issues of making sure that there are improvements coming from the ring officials and the ring announcers. Those are the deliberations that we'll be having post the licensing period, which will be done before the end of this particular month. So all those issues will be engaged, because we need to engage with our stakeholders to make sure that we move together in unison in making sure that we implement all the resolutions, as well as the board resolutions coming from the convention as well, and the ministerial pronouncements that must be engaged on. Thank you very much, Chair.
Sec.
Thank you, Chair. I was just waiting for Honorable Moletsane to come back, because I wanted to go back to her question. We have checked, even though I did say I'm waiting for the written report to get to me, but I've just checked to verify some of the things, and I wanted just to indicate, yes, indeed, we are putting 3.5 million towards the cost of the Orient after the assessment. The municipality is putting the rest for the other costs that I said there are other costs that we are not going to be covering. But they have indicated that they have a lease agreement with Transnet. So we would check all those things which have also been brought to our attention about this when I get the written report, which is yet to reach me. Just wanted to go back to that. And then in terms of the question from Advocate Salie, I want Sbusiso just to come in and speak about the investigation, but I want to acknowledge first before he comes. Yes, Honorable Salie, that very clear directive was given to us as a department through the minister in August, and we had not actually put the processes in place from August up until December, when the board assumed. As the chairperson was saying, that was one of the, I think we met them a day or so after they were appointed, and they were given a list of 3 or 4 priorities, and that was one of the things that we were given as a priority. I want Sbusiso just to come in on the issue that you are raising around the investigation of a board by another board. Yes, Sbusiso.
Thank you, ADG. Yes, I think it's an important one because, yes, the current board does not have authority to investigate the previous board. However, there's also another dimension into it, because right now they are no longer board members, which could also pose a risk in terms of having, if you were to investigate focusing on them, you would have a challenge in terms of getting the information firsthand from them, because part of the investigation involves, interviewing people. So as you may see, that there has been that hostility in terms of when they see the committee meetings and things in the media. So you may not get that cooperation from them. So the approach would be to have a full-scale forensic investigation, which is done by the board in conjunction with the department. We'll fund that investigation, and then that investigation is going to focus and bring recommendations and also identify people that were responsible for certain acts that happened at Boxing SA. So by then we'll be able now, through those recommendations, to say, how then do we go after a person if that person is found to have done anything wrong or committed a fraud at Boxing SA. So that's the approach that we are seeking to take on this investigation. Thank you.
I think we need to have an independent investigation here. The issue of the Oriental look a little bit messy. Thanks, Honorable Moletsane, for bringing that up. The issue of the provincial managers. In some of your reports, you mentioned that you have engaged with TSEC for officers. I'm not too sure whether there's finality on that issue, because the report says that they will see for office space within TSEC in other provinces where they can't utilize offices. Advocate Salie?
Thank you very much, because that is actually the response that I wanted, because I know that one board can't go and investigate another board, and that is why we need the forensic investigation, the independent forensic investigation, so that this matter can be put to rest and we can take the necessary route. That being said, I just want to ask some questions to the CEO. Can we get clarity on what you mean by cleaning the books before that time period prescribes on the debt? At this point, I mean, we don't have the investigation done or anything. So how are you going to work that out for now, right? So you're looking at cleaning in the books. You've got the debt, and then you obviously have to look at when these debts prescribe. So you please place on record, because we have South Africans very interested, wanting to know, obviously the answers. Then can Boxing South Africa tell us of the detailed plan on how debt will be collected from the active promoters? And the debt we are referring to is fresh and aligned with the AG's finding, just to place that on the record as well. Thank you.
Advocate Salie, you've used your attorney skills now to come in with a new question. But let me respond or let me assist in this fashion without an answer. Can we get a list? I'm also curious when I hear that. Can we get a list of those promoters? Because it's also revenue, like Advocate Salie has said. Can we get a list of that promoters and perhaps also the potential amount? And what Ayanda, what you have said, there's this time frame where you can't investigate further. That is bad debt. Can we get that list as well?